up, friends? This is Jazz bringing you finally a new video after, well, so long. I did do an unboxing recently of my Story of Seasons, A Wonderful Life, so that sort of counts, even though it came out later. But this video is going to be about the books I read, the games I beat, and maybe what's on the horizon for me there. This might be a semi-yearly series, like every 4 months or something, because I would be able to pile up enough to read. Now, guys, this isn't going to be exactly everything I did for this whole year or the last year, but just 4 or 5 of the things that I've, did, like read and played, right? Now, keep in mind, there might be 1 or 2 things I don't have physical representations of, either because I borrowed it from someone and read it, or it's not a physical game, but I'll insert a picture because it'll be easier to see that if I held my 3DS or Switch up to you. Well, Switch, I could take some pictures, I suppose, but anyway, we'll start with the books first because that has the best representation, and I'll start with the book that I don't have with me, and that is The Secret Garden. I borrowed it from a work staff, and I really enjoyed it. Like, I never thought I would enjoy a book like that, right? And it pretty much talks about a girl whose both parents are deceased, so she went to move with her uncle, and she starts off as a sour person, right? But as she gets out in the air more, she was never expected because she was pampered. Even though if it's not by her parents, she was pampered by her, what do they call it? She had a nurse, and I forget what they called it. It was in India, I guess, even though she is an Indonesian, person, but she lived there with her family, and she was taken care of that way, but she was never given proper attention or affection. So she never had that, that happiness in a way. But once she started going out more and meeting the people of where she lived, including her cousin who was hidden away because they thought he was invalid, right? That he was going to die, and he was almost as miserable or worse than she was because it was planted in his head he was going to die, and he was spoiled. Besides that, like every time he would scream, they would tend to his needs. So he was like her in a way, only worse, in my opinion, at the beginning of it. But they both heal as they meet each other and go out to the secret garden that was originally closed because Colin was his name, right? And like his mother died in that garden after an accident, so it was closed. And once they all get out into that garden, they all heal in a way. It's a magical story in a way, and I was really into it. Now, will this go in order, I believe, after that? The Grim Grotto. This is the 11th of the series of unfortunate events, and it was, how do I put it? I liked it. Alright. It out of all of them, it's probably my least favorite. I don't know why, but as I said, I didn't dislike it. I love the series, and as I would just say, sometimes even if you love a series, there's a weaker book, in your opinion. To me, and as I said, I'm not saying this is it as a whole, right? But to me, it was just my least favorite. Just seemed to be the weaker one. This could be the strongest one to some people. This is just my opinion, not that the book isn't good. But some of the content in it was just a little bit harder for me, even though this is supposed to be a darker book in a way, a series anyway. But then, they're in a submarine, and then they meet a whole bunch of, okay, I know, like, right now I'm not in the best shape, I don't know why I'm recording this, but as I remember, when I read it, I do remember it. They meet a captain and his daughter, and the guy that was in, oh, jeez, fourth book? Yes, the fourth book. The guy was in the fourth book, right? The one who was always optimistic and cheery. He was in this too. But we'll just say, to me, we'll just say Fiona. Fiona was the daughter, right? She betrays them in a way. That is probably what the hardest thing is. I mean, she does and she doesn't. Because it turns out the Ferdinand is what his real name is, but the hooked man is her brother. Yeah, I know, spoilers, I should have said that, but he's the only family she has left because her father, the captain, seems to disappear along with the guy from the fourth book, the Cheerful guy. Again, I keep forgetting the names of the ones that I don't read as much about. So she's worried that Ferdinand is the only one she has left, and she doesn't want to abandon her family. But she does let them go. She is with Count Olaf, at least in the end of this book, but she secretly lets them get away. So it's kind of a mixed bag with her there. It's a little bit more mixed. I think in the episode, it's a bit more harder in a way. She's a little bit more unlikable in the adaptation of it. So it's probably a bit harder when she betrays them in there. So, but anyway, I did. Maybe that's why I don't remember it as much, because I don't care for this one as much as I do the others. I might have to reread some parts. It was a while since I read it. So, take that as you will. 13 Reasons Why. Now, I actually really enjoyed this book. Obviously, this is the original, what is it? It has a different cover, but it's the original story, and the Netflix show was based on this, which is what the cover is from. But it's pretty much about a guy named Clay Jensen who got tapes, a set of tapes from a girl who had ended life, right? He had a baker, and usually the tapes are given to those if their name is on it. So he just goes to think, oh God, what did I do to contribute to it? Right? And all through the night, he listens to every single tape of every single person whose name was on there. And he does come to his name. Like, he listens to all of them that have already been, named, I believe. Or did he? I think he heard all of them, I'm pretty sure. And then he delivers it to the next person. Now, there is a difference between the book and the adaptation of the book. In the book, it is just through the whole night. He stays up all night, listens to all the tapes, then delivers them at the end of it. In the Netflix adaptation, though, it goes through weeks or maybe even months. I cannot really be sure. So it is affected a lot more in the adaptation of it. Not saying he isn't affected by everything, right, in this one. But he has more time, I think, to sit on it, to stew on it. And he has a lot more harassment, I think. So, let's say, I kind of wish that the Netflix adaptation had ended with that first season, even though it was different than the book. Because, let's say, by the end of the whole series, he's almost like a lunatic. I don't know how to explain it. He's seen a shrink, he does things, he has another personality, he has multiple personality disorder by the end of it. And then when I read this one, I'm like, oh yeah, they went way off track. Yes, I like this way better than the show. Just saying, they ruined it in a way. If they had maybe ended with, you know what, I would even give them maybe the second season, right? But if they had because it had to do with Hannah still in the trial, which they don't have in here, by the way. But if they had ended, especially with the first season, I would have said, okay, it was off track, but it stayed as true as it could to what it was, the point of what it was. But they completely went off track in this whole series, 13 Reasons Why. So guys, I'm sorry. Just stick with the book. Unless you just are a glutton for punishment, stick with the book. It's a lot better. It's a really good read. Alright. We got Ghost Speech. The newest Goosebump book that I read, not newest, as a new released, but the latest one that I read. It was alright. I mean, I enjoyed it. It's about a couple, a brother and sister, and they go to visit their great uncle and aunt, and then they meet a bunch of kids, right? And they're talking about ghosts, and there's this man there that's haunting them. And will they say there were twists in there? Obviously, will they say spoilers? Turns out those kids are the ones that are the ghost, and also the aunt and uncle, great aunt and uncle. So will they say it that way? But this is, people who probably watched the episode too, this is about similar as it gets, right? The difference is that in the episode, the little guy, I think his name is Sam, the littlest one, the out of the three, is not present. Where there's a younger one in this book. There's only the two older kid ghosts in the episode of it. Nate, that's what his name is, Nate. Nat, or I don't know what it is. That's what the younger one's name is. But it's you could say it is kind of sad in a way, because yes, they're the villains of the book, but when you think about it, they did not have a chance to live, because when they moved there, which is hundreds of years ago, 100 or something years ago, they weren't prepared for the climate change, and it was cold, and they died they froze to death, pretty much. So they were only, the oldest one was 12 years old. The youngest was about, 5, 6? So, they never had a chance to live. I can understand adults, they had a long time to live, but these three kids had to follow their parents. They couldn't just stay there, because they couldn't look after themselves there. So they were kind of had to follow their parents, and because of that, they all died. So, will they say, out of all the Goosebumps villains, they're probably the most sympathetic, in my opinion, because they, again, never had a chance to live. It was really tragic, especially the youngest one. Kind of reminds me of that Are You Afraid of the Dark episode, The Tale of the Frozen Ghost, where that poor kid, he was being chased by robbers, right? And he didn't have a jacket. They took his jacket from him, so all he wanted was his jacket. So in a way, it's similar to that, only he wasn't, what's the best word? He wasn't trying to do any harm to the main villains. Where in this, they were. They wanted them to join them. Because they wanted someone to play with, in a way. So, there is a difference between them and the Tale of the Frozen Ghost. Right? He is a lot more sympathetic. He just wanted his jacket. He wanted the go to find his jacket, to give it to him. Where in this one, that they wanted them to stay with them. To die with them. So, there is a bit of a difference between the two villains. I wouldn't even call the kid from the Frozen Ghost a villain, necessarily, just completely misunderstood. Where this one, they were the villains, but still more sympathetic villains, in a way. Will Allen and the Great Monster Detective. Now, this book I got kind of by surprise from my aunt, so I just read it, because it was a short book. It was only 82 pages, so it's one of the shorter ones. I actually really enjoyed it. At first, it was yeah, okay, you could take it as it is. But then I started reading it when I was at work, and more, and I'm this actually isn't bad for a children's book at all. And There's a series, I think three other books about it. But I read it, and it's about a kid named Will who has a monster under his bed. He's, 9 years old, and he hears things, right? And his parents are all kind of, obviously adults are, right? In that scenario, especially his father's like, you're too old to believe in monsters, right? And I am like, dude, little harsh, don't you think? Like, he doesn't even say it in a playful way. He does it in a stern way, like he did something wrong. Will did something wrong. I'm like, dude, he's 9. Yes, maybe he's a little too old to believe in monsters, but he's still a kid. Why are you scolding him about that? Is it hurting you? Right? And that's the thing. I mean, at part of this book, I do not like the father at all. I know there's a bit spoils in here too, because he admonishes his son for believing in monsters. When he sees his son still has his little teddy bear, he orders him to get rid of it. Not like, oh, you should get rid of it, you're a little too old. No, he orders, get rid of that thing. Why? Like, he makes his father so unlikable, right? But he meets a detective named, I know, Bigelow Hawkins. I could remember Bigelow Hawkins, and he goes and he looks for the monsters, right? And the first monster, yes, there's multiple of them, I guess. The first monster is a toilet with teeth. I mean, when I read that, I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm done, right? Because honest to God, timing. I mean, I was sitting on I know. Sometimes I read with my IBS. I was literally sitting on the toilet. I know TMI, but there's a point to this. I'm like, okay, I'm done. I'm like, did my aunt know about this? Like, it's just a joke, And I guess he was only the first mini-boss, so at least it got a little more serious. I know that as serious as a kid book can get, right? But still, I mean, could you just picture it? And it turns out he was afraid of broken toilets because of an accident he had when he was 3. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I guess that makes sense, right? So it is a legitimate fear, just manifested in something that seems so silly, right? I would have a fear of broken toilets too, but just for the opposite reason he had. Another different reason that he had. I mean, for him, it kept flushing. It was broken, and he thought he was going to be flushed down the toilet. With me, I'd be afraid of a broken toilet if there was nothing else for me to go to. So there's a difference in our fear, but still there. But it turns out his real fear was his father. So it did come to something how his father was acting. Now, at first when I read it, I'm like, does he abuse the kid? I mean, I know he was a little harsh, but is it? No. If that wasn't the case, his fear was put out of proportion, apparently. He thought his father didn't love him because he quit the Pee-wee game, and he was being bullied, so his bully was another fear. So he thought he was putting them down because he was being bullied, and he wasn't standing up for himself, but his fear was way out of proportion because Bigelow said, look at it, look further, look at the truth, Will. And it showed his father being, angry at the principal, because he didn't see the scene. He was on the phone saying, well, what are you going to do about this? My son is being tormented. But he was heartbroken for his son. Showed his real tender self. So that's why I said in this book, I had a bit of a hatred for the father, at least in this book. Because he just seemed to be so harsh on his son. But in reality, he was trying to be strong. He didn't want his son to see this weakness in him, but he had a weakness too. And in the end, he becomes a junior detective along with his friend, right, Janine. So, she becomes his secretary, but in the further books, he's going to help other kids with their monsters. So, the point of this book is the author made it for his eldest daughter. It deals with children and their anxieties, which I respect a lot. It may be a bit more of a manifestation in monsters, right? But it's talking about, in a fun way, how to deal with their anxieties, which I respect. I know I'm not a kid anymore. I know that. I haven't been a kid for a long time. But this does kind of deal with anxiety, which kind of helps, in a way, comfort in a way. So this is a secret pleasure. What do they call it? Guilty pleasure. So, we'll just say it is different than Goosebumps in a way, because it may be shorter, but it does kind of deal with more real issues, even though it's kind of in a silly way. So, this is not an adult book at all, right? But it does seem to challenge you a little more in some ways. Like, I don't know how to put it, but anyway, the last book, I know this is long, I'm only on the book section, I apologize, but hey, I'm making up for the lack of videos, so. The Lovely Bones. I had just finished this book the other day, a couple of days ago. My gosh. What do I say about this book? Okay. I really enjoyed it. We'll just say this. When I say it like this, I really did enjoy the book, right? But it was so dark. So dark. I don't know how to explain it. Like, the first bit of it, when Susie was murdered and essayed, assaulted. It was so hard to read. But this pretty much goes through her watching her family deal with the death of her and going on without her. Now, there is a remake, or there is a adaptation of this made, and there are differences for sure. Like, from what I remember, in the adaptation of this, it doesn't show them growing so much, the ones on Earth, until the very end of it. Right, and even then it's not glossed over. It really only shows Lindsay, the sister, her younger sister, by a year, I believe, a year and a half. But only her. About 8 years in this. Like, through the whole thing, Buck is now 12 instead of 4, almost 13, and it just shows the development of them. The mother abandons them, which again she does in the other two, but it doesn't feel as long because the time doesn't skip. She's only there a few months, I think. Where there, she's away for 6 years. Barely, she sends postcards, but Buck is angry, obviously. The abandonment is shown in him. So the characters are glossed over. They're more in depth in here, where it's kind of glossed over in the adaptation, which again is why usually books are better than the adaptations that are on there, usually. So, but I really did enjoy this book. By the end of it, I was hooked. Hooked, line, and sinker. So I really, really enjoyed it. So guys, now let's get on to the games that I beat. So, should we go from the oldest to the newest? I don't know, but or the newest to the oldest. I had recently beat Let's Go Easy. I enjoyed it. I did a poison challenge. Now, guys, I didn't do every single thing in here. I beat the main game. I used all poison types, or poison subtypes, they can be subtype 2, which I forgot that Bulbasaur and Venusaur were part poison. I'm glad that I found that out, because they were a big aspect of the team, including Mega Evolution, so I felt bad not using Eevee, but, it's what it is, right? It was a poison challenge, there's no poison evolutions, especially, not at all, yet alone Gen 1, so my main guy was Venusaur, obviously, because he could Mega Evolve, and couldn't find anything for a Mega Beedrill, which I had in my team as well, a Beedrill, which was pretty clutch. I've enjoyed some of the Pokemon that I used, that I never thought I would use, but I did. It was a fun little challenge for me. Now, the next game. Yu-Gi-Oh! The Sacred Cards. Yes, guys. I played a Yu-Gi-Oh! Game, and I actually beat it without cheats. Surprise! It was a really enjoyable game, but if I could give a complaint, little unbalanced. Although I could partially blame myself for not knowing how to do it right. All this time, I was so lazy to just destroy my whole deck. I didn't know how it was going to work, so I had to be able to sit down and go through all the cards. Like, but once I did that, my God, it was so much easier making a decent deck. I don't know why. I just kept trying to remove the weaker cards and add the newer ones, which did not work because I needed space capacity, you know. But if I just got rid of the whole deck and went one by one, adding mostly traps that were useful, and then adding a few of the good monsters that aren't all, like, that are 4 or under stars, I had a decent deck. Like, and this was my own fault. But another thing, though, the challenge level was a little unbalanced, though. You would be creaming all the rest of the duelists until the final, like, 2 duels, which were Odeon and Merrick. Those two, like, Odeon, okay, I bet the second time, you know, or bet after a while once I actually rebuilt my deck correctly. But Merrick, I won by luck the second time, or third. I think the third. It wasn't as many as I remembered. But my gosh, that was because I was lucky to remember, wait, I have this card, Regeki, or, you know, I can use it, you know, right away. Boom. And then boom, boom. Like, it's funny how one battle went so well, and then I got wiped by a stronger monsters, but I'm like, Regeki, boom. You know, I know I'm a little over-dramatizing the situation, but really, that's just how it was. I was playing so stupidly that I realized, wait, what the heck am I doing? I can activate it on my turn. I don't need to wait, like, I know, like, I'm learning about the cards, guys, and sometimes some of the cards aren't the same as they would be in, like, in the anime or in other versions of the game, so you have to really think when you use them. So, like one card, the inexperienced spy, I'm like, it's not working for me, like, I don't know why I didn't. But, and there's, like, no things like block attack or things like that, like, but there is stop defense. So there's just cards that were not in that game. Like, even Beer Force, I believe, wasn't in that game. Like, so it's confusing. There's some, I enjoyed the game alright. I gave it like a 3.5 out of 5. You know, it was good, but good but unbalanced. This game, like, it's one of my favorite of them. It's probably my favorite in the Yu-Gi-Oh games. So that's the only one I really could probably play and tolerate a little bit. But just even then, there's flaws to it. So, the next game, I might have to insert a picture, including the next few games. Pokemon trading card game for the Virtual Console. Actually, I enjoyed this game. It was challenging, obviously, but I actually picked up on it really quickly, and, like, as I said, I really, really enjoyed it. Now, I still think I did enjoy the Sacred Cards a little more. Like, I can't even select about equal. It's a trading card game as well, so only less story in it. If you do collect all the medals that come to Grand, you know, Master, and have the legendary cards. So I surprisingly beat him without codes. I had no choice, but I beat it, so it proves how I've improved. It's my patience for the most part playing the games. So again, I'll say I did like about as equal. But there are differences, like there's no real story in it, and that's the one thing that Sacred Cards has over this game. But when it comes to playing, it was a little bit more balanced, I believe. Sort of. I mean, the last duelist, the last Grandmaster I took on was sort of a joke, where this one beforehand, I'm like, how do I beat this guy? Like, it is... The 7th and the 8th for me was a bit of a, maybe I was supposed to do it in the other order. I don't know, because you could take them on almost any order if you fit the requirements to it. So maybe I should have taken on the last one earlier, the grass medal. I don't know, but to her it was like, excuse me, are you even trying? Like, where the other guy was like, oh my god, kill me, you know. Honestly, God, I think I had an easier time with some of the Great Masters than that guy. The Science Medal. The Science Medal, yes. Like, excuse me? Like, it was almost unfair, in a way. It took me, 5 or 6, maybe even 7 times to beat him. Where with Nikki, I remember him, the first time, it took me less than 5 minutes. I'm like, it's like she was hand holding, like, here, oh, you know what, here's what I'm gonna do. Like, I think I had a harder time with the first or second medal. But to be fair, I was just getting, used to it. And maybe she would have been more challenging. I took her on then, but yeah, no. Pretty much no. But anyway, the last two games, I also don't have, what is it, proper pictures or anything, but I'm going to I'll put some pictures, and it is, first, Pokemon Crystal. I just played with some monsters I never used, like Venomoth, Onix, Dunsparce, just ones that I really didn't use. I did keep Meganium, though, I believe. So I kept her because she was the least used. I didn't use it enough, so I kept her. If it was the other two starters, I probably would have tried them. I believe I also used Polygraph, I believe. Now, not that they were completely underused generally. Like Onix and Dunsparce, definitely. And Venomoth, well, okay, maybe. Right? But I really did enjoy, playing that game. Like, Dunsparce was a VIP in a lot of ways. He took one or two of Lance's Dragonites out, including one more. He didn't do very much against Red, unfortunately. He was the star for most of it until Red, which I feel bad, and even Onix wasn't awful. I used Rocky. Yeah, I used Rocky. The one that, and I took all the time to level them up too, so no cheats whatsoever. And I'd get them until at least 60 or high 70s, so. Plus, I found my very first legitimate shiny. Maybe not my very first, but my first out of the all odds. Right? Like this game was one of the first ones to introduce, like the Generation 2 was one of the first to introduce shinies in general. Right? And Red Gyarados was pretty much given, right? So imagine finding a full-on shiny. It was a Graveler, unfortunately. Although Graveler wasn't bad, but I just couldn't get a Golem from it. And plus, he could have self-destructed or exploded at any time. I was lucky, I caught it too. Like, I'm going to have to include a type of picture, if I could remember finding it, but I found a full-on shiny Graveler. My gosh, I was so lucky. They didn't want to use it, but I already stuck with the team I had, so. And it was a down silver as well, so he could have exploded or self-destruct. He had one of those moves guaranteed. But I caught him. So that was one of the most memorable experiences I've had playing that game. And the final game I'm bringing up that I can remember is Pokemon Yellow version. I played again with Pokemon. I used the 3 starters plus Pikachu, so I did use quite a few of them. But I enjoyed it. I even stuck with Pikachu through the very end, and he was a sort of a star. Sorry, usually people don't stick with Pikachu, and plus I couldn't even use the Miss and No Glitch. So all this time I thought I could, but I didn't. I messed up doing that. So, but I did it fairly, and I beat the whole game fairly. So it was a memorable experience playing through, because Yellow was the harder version to beat too without it. So I felt so proud of myself, more so than I did in Crystal, actually, because I think about it. I chose to play the hardest of the 3 Gen 1 games there. 2, I had my hopes setting on missing No for the last few gyms, and I learned to mess up, but I still continued to beat it. So you think I would be discouraged by them, but I still got through it and beat it with Pikachu in my team, of all things. I could have used another electric type, a Jolteon maybe, right? But I didn't. I stuck with Pikachu. I felt bad getting rid of it, so I stuck with it. And I am very pleased about that. Very pleased. Now guys, I think we're going to get on to some of the things that I'm going to read or play, and I'll do an update and if I do these. Okay, let's start with the one that I'm most iffy about finishing, which is Watership Down. Guys, Watership Down. Guys, this is probably one of the most challenging books I've come across. Not one, okay, Stephen King is a little bit up there, okay, I'll admit it. Stephen King is the only thing that I compare it to that's worse. I've read like this much of it, so I have somewhat of a chunk into it, but just the language they use. It's a book that I would not be able to comfortably read at work. Because I would need a dictionary, I would need my internet to properly be able to go through the things I don't understand. And at work, I'm allowed my phone, but I can't have it out so much for that purpose because the other clients there, they do not understand that. For one, it's my phone, right? It's not one of the work, tablets or phones, and they would want to have access to it too. And I'm fortunate that she let me keep it as a noise canceling as long as I don't let them see it. So I could not use that as a dictionary. A dictionary wouldn't even do this justice. I'm sorry, it's that challenging. They have that different language in it. It's even mentioned that to be a challenging book online for people because of the different languages and different passages he uses. And here, I still want to finish this eventually, but right now, this might be a next year. I might finish it by the end of the next video. Maybe. What I read, I enjoy it to a degree. I just can't get into the atmosphere of it. You kind of get what I mean? The next one I'm bringing out is one that I'm slowly reading as well, and I'm going to start reading more again, is Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. I'm further along in that than I am in Watership Down, right? So I do plan to read at least another 100 pages for now, maybe more by the time we finish this, or this next one comes out. So this is definitely easier than Watership Down. Yes, I'm saying this is easier than Watership Down. That's how much of a challenge this is. This is a breath of fresh air compared to it. But I did a lot more other books beforehand for getting back to this. So I'm going to try to read more of this next. Alright, the next thing. Series of Fortune Events, The Penultimate Peril. This is definitely, I'm going to read this very soon. This is the second to last book in this series, so this is what I could read at work, okay, so this might be a big workbook, but I'm going to try to read some more at home too, so we'll just see what mood I'm in. I know, to start with guys, I know these are a lot of books, and it is a bad idea in a way, but unlike playing a lot of different games, in a way, reading a lot of books is a little more acceptable, because you can kind of pick what mood you're in. You might not be able to finish a whole book in one setting. As long as you look back on it and you trace what you read, they're usually pretty good. Unlike games where you can go so far and you forget where you went. But this one, I'm going to try to read more after I read at least 50 or so pages of the Half-Blood Prince. Unless I really need a break, then I'll go to this. This one here again is also kind of iffy. This is a comic, I know, but it's Calvin and Hobbes, the essential Calvin and Hobbes. So use this as a break in between. Now, guys, honestly, you're going to laugh at me for saying this. For a comic, this is quite challenging in some parts. Yes, the guy who made this, Bill Watterson, has a sense of using higher language in some areas, more challenging words in place of others. Especially if it's supposed to be like a poetic type of book. I look like sulfurous. Wait, what? I had to read up to know this is like sulfur, like the oceany kind of. But he used that word instead of that. I'm like, what? But then a lot of the smaller comics in there, like normal ones, seem to have okay, vocabulary that I can understand. But for a comic that's supposed to relieve you, cause, a little bit of a breather, has that challenge in it. I gotta just learn to get over his big word usage and just read through it, because I like the comic as a whole, like the idea of the comic, so. And the final one I have there for this time, and I didn't start this one really yet, I just have a bookmark for what I do. Return of the Mummy. This is number 23 in the Goosebumps series. So, this will be an easy break book. You know, just if I want to read, if I need a break between the higher level books, this is what I'm going to be reading. So, yeah, it's a sequel to The Curse of the Mummy's Tomb. Finally, I'm getting to it. I had the TV adaptation book of it, but it's quite a bit different, so I wanted to get the actual book in this scenario. So, yeah. Now, guys, on to the games. If I can find them. Yeah. Start with Miitopia. Now, guys, this is going to be a game that I play a little bit later, because I'm already kind of playing the game currently. But it's something different. It's still kind of an RPG in a way, but it's different a little bit. I don't know how to explain what it is, but it's a little different. I had this game for years and I've never played it, so I wanted an excuse to play it. Another game that this game I can't really show you a picture of, but I have. It is Cooking Companions. A horror game, yes or no? Yeah, you could say, what? Horror? It's in a similar vein to Doki Doki Literature Club. Only, in my opinion, I don't know, maybe just as dark, but not. It's dark in a different way. Really. Well, they say it's about a guy who turns out to be a cannibal, and it's, yeah, really, really dark. But the jump scares are actually kind of light compared to some horror games. And it's a little bit of you choose dialogue, and it's just more of an easy game that way. You don't need to do a lot of puzzles that are challenging, so it's a game that I'm choosing between that and Miitopia. I might go to that in a little bit when I'm done to take a break from the game that I'm currently playing. If I can actually... Story of Seasons, A Wonderful Life. Guys, this one, I don't know if I will finish it by next year. I might, though. It actually is sort of looking like it. This is a remake of A Wonderful Life that was released in 2003 for the GameCube, and another 50 years so later for the PS2. I'm on Chapter 4 of 6. So, I might actually beat this game, unlike before. The furthest I've gotten in the original was in the middle of Chapter 2. Yeah, that's how bad it was. This one, it's only one game year per chapter, unlike the 2, the 3, the 1, and some, like, the first one was only one chapter, or one game year. The others are a lot longer, like 10 to 8 for a whole, the whole go. And then, unless you're doing the special editions, which was the PlayStation 2, you die and can't play again. Where in this one you also can. It has the same feature as in the special edition where you got Heaven Mode. There you'd still do die at the end of it, but you can replay it at a certain point, so... Which is cool. The main point of this is your child, that's why if you don't get married the first year, it's game over. So how am I doing? I'm in the year 4. I'm in the middle. I'm near fall of year 4. So I'm so close to year 5. It is getting a bit more monotonous, though, guys. I'll admit it. I got almost all the upgrades. I have to work on learning how to do hybrids better. That is a bit more confusing for me. I got to learn what grows in what season. I have to really write all this down because it's a new game, so the walkthroughs aren't as good yet. So, I just have to keep track of those things. So far, it's confusing what my kid is going to go into. His likes are academic, but her likes are academic, but her abilities are in farming. And abilities is where they look at. So, it's getting high in both, but farming is still upping, the criteria. I married Cecilia, or Celia, in the original one, because she was the easiest when I started a new game, just to do what I learned. And this is where I'm the furthest along now, so I'm sticking with it. So originally I was okay with farming, that was my original goal, but then she started to like academics, and I'm like, I felt so bad, right? Because she was really enjoying, like, academic stuff, but because her abilities are infirming, it is harder to get her up there. I did learn that somewhat it'll all come together each year, each chapter. Like, you give a lot of gifts, and everything you do will eventually influence it heavier at the end, right? Rather than it slowly going up during the whole chapter. So it's kind of like it takes the statistics and don't really show you the growth until the next chapter. So maybe I will get ahead in academics if I keep mostly focusing on that. Right now I just want my kid to be happy. Pretty much. Like, originally I'm like, oh, be a farmer like me, but I'm like, yeah, no, I mean, that would be too easy with Cecilia's roots. So I want to make it a little bit more of a challenge, in a way. So, my other file I had Gavista, right? But, I'm enjoying the game. I've taken breaks from it, though, because it does get monotonous after a while. Kind of see what I mean, but, alright. And I believe this is going to be the final game that I'm fully playing, right? But I'm not, like, how do I put it? But I'm not completely, you know. I put that more on the back burner, and that is Pokemon Scarlet version. Now, I got that from my workplace, so I do want to beat it eventually. I'm going to have to look back on what I've played. But, you know, I'm enjoying it. Is it enough? Not enough to go to the other? Yeah. I forgot a game that I actually beat. Okay, I'm going to bring this up to you guys. Stardew Valley. With mods, yes. But I beat it. I did heavy mod, but I beat it. I got the community center open. At least. So I got the credits or something, I believe. I don't know, but I satisfied myself. For me, guys, this is just a game I couldn't beat without mods. I'm sorry, I couldn't fully enjoy it at all without mods, but I did enjoy it, playing as I did. So, that is that. That's probably, I forgot it because I was the least proud of that one in one way, because I had used heavy mods. I mean, heavy mods. Like, I wouldn't die in mines, I would pause the game, like that type of heavy mods. Right? But guys, sometimes you need to do certain things to enjoy games, right? I would never do that in a competition. If I couldn't play it fairly in a competition, I wouldn't play it. So this is just, sometimes you need to do certain things to enjoy a game, right? Because I know the game is a good game, and I wanted to enjoy it in some capacity, so for my enjoyment, I did it with mods, right? It's what it is. So, but anyway, again, guys, I'm going to play Pokemon Scarlet a little more eventually, but I want to try to prioritize other games. Like, there are games that I do want to kind of finish before I finish this video, or to announce before I finish this video. I do want to eventually play Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Explorers with Sky again, but that will be a heavy later game, because it's a harder game. Especially out of all the Mystery Dungeon games, it's a harder game to play. I don't know what other game I did also kind of beat. Yeah, I did also beat Pioneers of Olive Town again. So take it as you will. I beat it except for having the kid. I never seem to get there. Someday I will. Surprisingly, I never had a kid in that one. And honestly, so far, The Wonderful Life has been the only game that I really paid attention to the villagers. I truly focused on the villagers. Maybe because that's a point of the game. If not, you're screwed. But I have to learn to enjoy the games more for what they are, and not just the goal in mind. So anyway, guys, I know there's a lot of edits in there. Well, let's say by the end I had a little trouble with my camera. Sorry about that. So anyway, guys, if you enjoyed this video, give it a big thumbs up. And if you're new to this channel and like what you see, please subscribe and help this channel a lot. And don't forget to hit the bell notification so you know when new videos are coming out. And I'll see you guys in my next video.